Racist cop arrests black woman, then learns she's a state lawyer. A steady rain pelted the darkened streets of Philadelphia as Officer Lance Bridger prowled the night shift, tension radiating through his every move. Near a poorly lit intersection, he spotted a lone black woman parked at a curb looking, in his eyes, out of place. Fueled by old prejudices, Lance flicked on his cruiser's lights, approaching with a hardened stare. When her calm insistence at innocence defied his assumptions, he doubled down, arresting her with force. He never bothered to check her ID. Not until the station lights illuminated her face did Lance learn a jaw-dropping truth. His captive was Simone Harrington, a high-ranking state lawyer. In the heart of Philadelphia, near the intersection of Broad Street and Girard Avenue, the neon glow from a convenience store's sign illuminated slick pavement. It was past midnight, a time when Officer Lance Bridger felt the city revealed its undesirables. A 10-year veteran of the Philadelphia Police Department, Lance prided himself on being tough on street criminals. But behind that mantra lay a simmering prejudice. He often targeted black residents with unwarranted suspicion. That night, Lance ended a routine call about noise complaints. He resumed cruising the quiet streets, scanning for anything he deemed suspicious. As he rounded a corner, his headlights fell on a black sedan, engine running, a single occupant inside. The occupant, a black woman, appeared to be fiddling with something, maybe a phone or a legal pad, unbeknownst to Lance. Instantly, Lance's biases kicked in. She must be up to something. Without calling dispatch, he activated his lights and approached. In the city's hush, the siren's brief wail felt ominous. The woman lifted her head, glancing into the rearview mirror, clearly startled. For Lance, this was just another loiterer on a late-night corner. For the woman, it was an unexpected intrusion. Fate had set the stage for a confrontation that would soon go well beyond a routine police check. Stepping from the cruiser, water dripped from Lance's cap, each footstep splashing in puddles. The black sedan's driver's side window slid down. Inside, Simone Harrington displayed a calm expression, though her eyes flickered with uncertainty. She politely asked, "Is there a problem, officer?" Lance's gaze took in her tailored blazer, neat hair, a leather briefcase on the passenger seat, all details. He swept aside in favor of suspicion. His tone was gruff. "ID and registration now." Simone complied, handing them over. Lance noticed the name Simone Harrington, but paid little attention beyond her driver's license. He barked a question about her reason for parking. She explained she was reviewing notes before heading home from a late meeting. Lance's disbelieving stare hardened. "Late meeting, huh? In a shady spot. Step out of the car, ma'am." Simone paused, confusion crossing her face. "I haven't broken any law. Why do I need to step out?" Lance's hand hovered near his holster. "Are you resisting an officer?" The tension spiked. Simone sensed hostility. She tried to clarify, "Officer, I'm not resisting. I'm just uncertain about the cause." But Lance yanked the door open, forcibly pulling her out. She stumbled, dropping a folder of legal documents, pages scattering. Fear laced her voice. "Stop, you're hurting me. Ignoring her, please." Lance forced her against the sedan's hood, metal cuffs clicking around her wrists. He muttered about suspected illegal activity. The short exchange left Simone trembling, soaking in the drizzling rain, shock warring with anger. She realized this was no mere misunderstanding. This was a policeman's prejudice turned violent. Lights from passing cars flickered across Simone's face as Lance shoved her into the back of his cruiser. The weight of the handcuffs bit into her wrists, each jolt of the vehicle intensifying her discomfort. Simone fought a swirl of outrage and fear. She recognized that speaking up too forcefully might escalate matters. But why was this happening? She complied fully, yet she was being treated like a criminal. At the 15th District Station, the arrival caused some heads to turn. Lance marched Simone inside, ignoring her protest that she was an attorney. He barked at the desk sergeant, caught her loitering suspiciously, refusing to comply. Simone tried to correct him, voice measured. "I was parked legally, officer. I have every right to a phone call." The desk sergeant, an older man named Jim Morales, frowned at Lance. He recognized a mismatch between the well-dressed woman and the alleged crime. But with Lance's direct statements, he processed the arrest, albeit with skepticism. "We'll put her in the hold while we verify," Jim said, nodding at Simone sympathetically. Stripped of her phone and personal items, Simone felt an unusual vulnerability. She, who'd prosecuted criminals, was now in a dank holding cell. She knew the law well enough to see this was an unlawful arrest, but she also recognized the chain of procedure. Someone had to see the bigger picture. Gathering a breath, she prepared to demand her due process, never suspecting how swiftly her identity would rock the entire station. While Simone sat behind bars, tension coiled in every muscle. She replayed each moment, concluding that the officer's aggression was fueled by prejudice. She worried about missing a critical morning briefing at the state's attorney's office. Meanwhile, outside the cell, Jim Morales typed Simone's data into the system, verifying her ID. His eyes widened at the returns. Simone Harrington wasn't just a random attorney. She held the title Senior Assistant State Attorney for the state of Pennsylvania, an official post frequently working in collaboration with local district attorneys. Jim double-checked the records, confirming her legal accreditation, her high-level security clearance. Realizing the gravity, he felt a tremor of anxiety. If a racist cop manhandled a high-ranked state lawyer, the blowback would be severe. Morales approached Lance in the hallway, hush-voiced. "You realize who she is, right? She's a top official with the state. This is huge." Lance froze, color draining from his face. "No, that's impossible," Morales insisted, pointing at the system's result. Panic twisted Lance's gut. He'd forcibly arrested a powerful legal figure. The potential for career-ending repercussions soared. He stammered, We can fix this." She was suspicious. Morales shook his head, face set grimly. "This is beyond departmental cover-ups. The moment she calls her office, it's game over for you." Lance felt the walls closing in, dread overshadowing him. The unstoppable avalanche of consequences was about to begin. In the holding cell, Simone inhaled, trying to remain calm. She approached the bars, demanding her constitutional right to a phone call. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the desk sergeant argued with Lance about freeing her. Lance refused fear and arrogance, fueling his choice to maintain control. He insisted on finishing some paperwork. The hushed tension across the station crackled. Eventually, Jim Morales defied Lance's instructions, bringing Simone the station's phone. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. Here's your call." With a grateful nod, Simone dialed a direct line to her colleague at the Pennsylvania State Attorney's office. She calmly explained the situation: an unlawful arrest by Officer Lance Bridger, no probable cause, physical aggression. The colleague, outraged, promised to notify the local district attorney's liaison immediately. Simone ended the call, heart hammering the cavalry was coming. She stood taller, leaning on her legal knowledge that soon this station's wrongdoing would blow wide open. Within half an hour, calls poured into the station's main line from the district attorney's office, from a superior court judge, from local politicians. The staff realized an unstoppable chain reaction was underway. Lance, overhearing the frantic ring of phones, realized each ring hammered a nail into his career coffin. Simone locked eyes with him through the cell bars, a mixture of anger and determination in her gaze. He turned away, shame and desperation swirling. The storm he ignited was about to consume him. By early dawn, a black SUV pulled up outside the precinct. Out stepped Anthony Foster, a top official from the Pennsylvania State Attorney's Office. With him was Detective Lucy Montoya, representing the local district attorney. They marched inside, the station's hush deepening as officers recognized high-level visitors. Foster demanded to see Simone immediately. Meanwhile, Simone, still in the holding cell, perked up hearing her colleague's voice. She felt relief coursing through her. Lance hovered near the bullpen, sweat collecting at his temple. He dreaded the confrontation. Indeed, within minutes, Foster confronted the watch commander, brandishing credentials, pushing for Simone's immediate release. The watch commander, who'd just come on shift, was baffled by the fiasco. A tense exchange ensued. Detective Montoya read the arrest report, eyebrows arching at the vague claim of loitering with suspicion. She dismissed it as nonsense. Lance tried to defend himself, stammering that he felt threatened. Montoya coldly noted there was zero sign Simone was armed or resisting. The watch commander, exasperated, demanded Simone be freed right then. As an officer unlocked the cell, Simone stepped out, adjusting her wrinkled blazer. She gave a curt nod to the watch commander, ignoring Lance's presence. Foster escorted her away, though it was clear the matter was far from over. Montoya eyed Lance with a look that said everything. "You have no idea how badly you've messed up." The station braced for the next steps, the formal complaints, investigations, and possibly a civil lawsuit that would soon hammer the department. The news broke at midday. Local cop arrests high-ranking state attorney for no reason. Social media lit up, praising Simone for standing her ground, condemning the blatant racism. A few bystanders' phone videos of the roadside arrest found their way online. While not as physically brutal as some footage might show, the clip clearly displayed a uniformed officer forcibly cuffing a cooperative woman. Commentary soared, pointing out how Simone's status as a lawyer overshadowed typical pleas from civilians. Imagine if she was no attorney, how worse it might have ended. TV reporters stationed outside the precinct sought comments from the chief of police, the district attorney, or Simone herself. The DA's office confirmed a formal inquiry. The PD's spokesperson offered a short statement about fully cooperating with an internal review, giving no details. Meanwhile, Simone, via her office, announced she'd press charges for assault and false arrest if the PD didn't swiftly rectify the matter. The wave of condemnation spread. Local politicians demanded accountability. For Lance Bridger, each news cycle hammered the final nails in his career coffin. He avoided the cameras, hiding behind the union's statement about pending investigation. But even among fellow officers, support was scarce. The station's mood was grim, overshadowed by a scandal that threatened to unravel broader departmental trust. Tensions soared, with many quietly rooting for Simone's pursuit of justice. Within the Philadelphia Police Department headquarters, a special panel convened to review Lance's conduct. The panel included senior officers, an independent community representative, and the district attorney's liaison. Over 3 days, they pored over body cam footage. Sadly, Lance's body cam malfunctioned that night, raising further suspicion. They cross-referenced station records, the scathing phone videos from bystanders, plus statements from Simone, the staffer who accompanied her, and passers-by who witnessed the arrest. Simone provided a formal deposition, describing the abrupt escalation, how Lance refused to accept her ID in the car, used unnecessary force, and ignored her repeated statement that she was a state official. The staffer's testimony corroborated every detail. The hearing room's hush was broken only by the panel's scribbling notes. Meanwhile, Lance insisted he'd acted in good faith, claiming Simone refused to comply. However, the video suggested otherwise. showing Simone calmly trying to explain her credentials. As the inquiry progressed, it became clear Lance had fabricated parts of his official report, omitting mention of Simone presenting her ID or how he pinned her forcibly. The panel members exchanged grim glances. The final day ended with the district attorney's liaison quietly telling Simone that charges against Lance were likely, as the panel recommended severe disciplinary action or firing. Simone left the hearing feeling both vindicated and exhausted. She recognized the avalanche of accountability was near completion. The man who tried to intimidate her now faced not just departmental censure, but the possibility of losing his freedom. As the investigation's conclusion neared, activists staged a peaceful protest outside the precinct. Crowds held signs demanding racial justice and no more corrupt cops. The local NAACP chapter, outraged by the brazen racism, called for city-wide reforms. Some protesters chanted Simone's name, lionizing her stance as a top state lawyer who refused to bow to prejudice. Simone, however, remained out of the public glare, focusing on her legal approach. She quietly worked with her team, finalizing potential civil rights lawsuits that could push structural changes. She also received countless messages from Black law students who found inspiration in her story. If they can do that to a state attorney, they can do it to any of us. Simone's heart felt heavier with each account, fueling her commitment to see the matter through. Meanwhile, Lance, suspended pending the final decision, found himself demonized in every local paper. Anonymous sources leaked that he had prior racial profiling complaints. The protest's energy soared, culminating in calls for Chief's resignation if no swift action is taken. On the eve of the final press conference, the city braced for a definitive answer. Would the PD set an example by punishing Lance thoroughly or risk an even larger outcry? A crisp morning dawned in front of City Hall, where cameras lined a makeshift podium. The Philadelphia police chief, flanked by the district attorney, approached the mic to deliver the official outcome. Citizens crowded behind barricades, Simone and her colleagues among them, while some chanted slogans for reform. The chief's voice, subdued yet resolute, announced that Officer Lance Bridger is terminated from the Philadelphia Police Department, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and falsifying arrest records. Then the district attorney took the mic, confirming that Lance faced second-degree assault charges, plus federal civil rights violations pending. Applause and cheers erupted from the crowd. Simone, standing discreetly behind the barrier, exhaled a huge sigh. A wave of relief coursed through her. The chief also vowed new training protocols and insisted the department would cooperate with the state attorney's recommendations. The energy among onlookers felt electric, a moment of accountability rarely seen. Simone felt tears sting her eyes. A staffer from her office patted her back, murmuring, "You did this." As the press conference ended, reporters thronged the audience for comment. Simone gave a short statement, "I'm glad justice is served. Let this remind us we must keep pushing for fair policing. No one is above the law." Cameras flashed. Lance was nowhere in sight, presumably turning himself in for formal booking. The circle of karma was complete, overshadowing the city's usual cynicism with a sense that at least for one day, truth had prevailed. In the weeks that followed, the PD introduced new anti-bias training modules, restructured complaint review boards, and assigned an external auditor to track accountability. While systemic issues lingered, Lance Bridger's downfall symbolized a zero-tolerance stance on blatant racism in uniform. The City Council passed a resolution praising Simone Harrington for her bravery in exposing the injustice. Citizens across Philadelphia invoked her story as a turning point. Simone resumed her duties as a state attorney with renewed vigor. She found herself quietly approached by residents recounting similar experiences of harassment. Grateful, she'd championed their cause. She wrote an op-ed in the Philadelphia Inquirer, calling for expanded oversight powers for community policing boards. The piece garnered widespread support, pushing the conversation beyond a single officer's misconduct towards systemic reform. As for Lance, indicted on assault and civil rights charges, he faced a drawn-out legal process. Early pleas for leniency faltered in the face of overwhelming evidence. His union parted ways, refusing to defend indefensible acts. Some speculated he might strike a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial, but either way, his career in law enforcement was finished. Simone's ordeal resonated beyond Philadelphia, fueling national dialogue on racial bias in policing. The city, forging forward with incremental change, saw a spark of unity each time they remembered how swiftly injustice can be toppled when confronted by unwavering truth. Late one evening, Simone strolled near the same intersection where Officer Briggs had once confronted her. The streetlights glowed on slick asphalt, reminiscent of that fateful night. Except now, she carried no fear, only a sense of triumph. She recalled the raw aggression in Lance's eyes, his refusal to see her as a person. But with the city's support and her own unwavering resolve, she had proven that neither prejudice nor brute force could stand unchallenged. At a modest cafe, she sipped tea, reading an update on new police accountability bills passing the Pennsylvania legislature. She saw her name mentioned in the acknowledgements, referencing how her story had catalyzed public momentum. A small smile formed. She recognized that while not every officer was bad, the system required strong checks to keep prejudice at bay. Her phone buzzed with a text from a close colleague. "You did it. The city stands with you," she typed back, a grateful reply, stepping into the mild night, brimming with hope. In the distance, sirens wailed. But Simone Harrington felt no dread. She'd changed the city's conversation, forging a path for countless others to stand tall. The final note was clear. No matter how dark the night, truth and resilience spark the dawn of justice. Ultimately, Officer Lance Bridges' brazen act of arresting Simone Harrington, a high-ranking state lawyer, for no lawful reason, catapulted an everyday instance of racial profiling into a colossal reckoning. In trying to suppress the truth, Bridger exposed his own deep-seated bias, leading to his swift firing and criminal charges. Through it all, Simone held her ground, transforming pain into purpose. Her unwavering stand not only dismantled a rogue cop's career, but also spurred the Philadelphia Police Department to implement reforms that might save others from similar abuse. If this explosive account of prejudice, courage, and rightful retribution stirred you, please hit that like, share this story, and subscribe to our channel. Your support ensures that more voices like Simone's, fearless in the face of injustice, can resonate far beyond city limits. Remember, when a single act of bold defiance aligns with the righteous pursuit of equity, even the mightiest walls of systemic bias can crack, ushering a brighter tomorrow for all.